thank you guys all for joining us tonight. We are pretty excited about some of these topics. I would do my best so we could talk about some cool stuff today or cold stuff today. Oh, there we go. Go back. I do want to highlight on that first screen, we are recording this, just so everybody knows we are recording this, and we'll keep track of the chat. And we'd like to share this out with all of the women who couldn't be here tonight and post it out on our YouTube channel for the department. So you're more than welcome to check it out. So Caitlin has some really cool tips about ice fishing coming up. And in case you want to just double check or get a reminder, you can always log back into that YouTube channel and get this because we are recording it. And please join into the conversation. So type questions, comments, anything that pops in your mind, go ahead and throw it in the chat box so that we can chat and keep the conversation going. So with that, pretty sure everybody is throwing in their information into the chat box. And if you think of anything throughout this, feel free to put in any suggestions you have for upcoming social hours. We have some ideas that we'll throw at you at the end, but if you guys have something that pops up that you want more information on or you think it'd be really cool, please let us know at any time. So do we want a quick round of introductions for everybody?
Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be really good since it looks like we've got quite a few new folks, which is awesome.
Yes. Cool. Well, I guess I'll start since I just started talking and didn't introduce myself. I apologize. I am Tristanna Bickford. I'm the communications director. I am based out of the Santa Fe office, or I guess currently based out of my home since I'm teleworking. I'm just outside of Santa Fe.
I'll go ahead and go. I'm Jennifer Morgan. I'm the Hunter Education Coordinator for the department, normally out of the Northwest area office in Albuquerque, but again, also teleworking. So thank you all for joining us this evening.
Jessica Fisher, and I'm the Shooting Program Coordinator for the department. And I typically work out of the Santa Fe office, and I am very tired of working from my home, but I'm still here.
My name is Megan Otero. I'm the Assistant Coordinator for Hunter Education, and I usually also work out of the Albuquerque office, but currently coming to you from Rio Rancho now.
And we're excited to have a special guest join us tonight. So Caitlin, I'll let you do your introduction because you have kind of a unique background compared to all of us on the information and education side.
Okay, hey everybody, happy to be here. I've been wanting to get in on one of these, so this was a great opportunity. My name is Caitlin Ruhl. I'm one of the bighorn sheep biologists in the Wildlife Management Division at Game and Fish. I work out of Santa Fe, also not allowed in the office right now, so working from home. I apologize for if my background offends anybody, but this is the best spot in my house right now. We're doing a lot of projects around here, so happy to be here.
Cool. Thanks, Caitlin. I had to get my favorite bighorn sheep picture up there just for you. Well, should we just jump right in and start with Caitlin in your presentation?
Sure. Sounds good. All right. Share screen here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is that looking good for everybody?
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about cold weather sports, in particular ice fishing today. I just introduced myself, but that's me, ice fishing. I do all kinds of hunting and fishing. Ice fishing is something I've been engaged in intermittently since I was a kid. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so ice fishing is pretty big there. I didn't have an ice shack or anything like that, but got out occasionally. My aunt and uncle lived on a lake, so we were fortunate to have opportunity there. We've done some ice fishing in Montana. I used to live there, and a little bit in New Mexico. So it's a pretty cool winter recreational opportunity, and I think it's worth giving it a try at least. So why would you want to go ice fishing? One, it's another chance to be outdoors. And this day and age, it's nice to get out of the house. You see a couple cartoons on the right there. I'm certainly sick of being home. I don't know, I'm not sure what my tally is at now, but that'd be interesting to figure out for days at home.
I think Jessica was given a pretty good tally for a while. I think we all just kind of said infinity.
Yeah. It gives you an opportunity to take in beautiful winter scenery. I'm not somebody that goes out skiing or snowboarding, which is another cool winter sport, but wintertime is beautiful in northern New Mexico, and so it's an opportunity to get out and enjoy that winter landscape. Catching fish is fun. I think most people in here have either caught fish or are interested in doing it, and it's a blast. Also, fish taste good. If you're interested in turning a fun day into some meals, there's good opportunity. Ice fishing, what I found is it can be a pretty fun social gathering. It doesn't really have the same intensity as, you know, trying to hunt elk or even, you know, trying to hunt upland species. It's often more of a party on the ice. You can bring breakfast and lunch. You can have other families or friends meet you out there. And, you know, it's pretty conducive to social distancing, I think. So in thinking about how to talk about ice fishing, as with all sorts of recreational activities, you start delving into this stuff and the possibilities are really endless in terms of gear and methods and places to go. So I thought maybe the best way for me to kind of map it all out in my head was to just start with what we do when we go ice fishing. It's something I do with my husband pictured here, and now our little guy, who you probably can't see, but he's tucked in that car seat in the picture on the left with all of our ice fishing gear. So some of the things you see in that sled, which is probably one of your essential items if you're going to go ice fishing, a sled to haul your gear. You see a bucket with some rods, some regular spinning rods and some tip-ups. There's a cooler, there's a tackle box, there's some extra layers, there's a diaper bag if you need one of those, there's a little buddy heater there in the bottom left. And these photos were taken at Eagle Nest Lake. You can see in that photo on the right, those folks have their shelter set up. So once we get out on the ice, I guess the first thing we do is pick a spot. If you happen to fish particular bodies of water in the summer, then you may know something, you may know a thing or two about where you've had some luck, and those would be good places to start. Otherwise, you know, anywhere up to, I'd say 5 to 20 feet of water is usually where we go. We try to target perch and trout. You strategize a little differently depending on the body of water you're on and the size of fish you're going after. So kind of knowledge that you already have from maybe fishing in better weather conditions, you can also just look and see where people are. Usually people concentrate a lot around the boat ramps because they don't want to walk too far, but maybe you're somebody that just wants to walk as far as you possibly can and get away from people. That's an idea. Just go out there and drill a hole. That middle picture shows you how we'll drill holes in the ice. It's an auger that was actually a hand auger that we bought a little adapter for on Amazon that was maybe somewhere between 25 and 50 bucks and attached it to a drill. I'll go into your options a little bit later, but this is probably it's easier than using the manual auger, but less expensive than getting one of those gas-powered ones. And then this photo on the right, let's see, you've got a good view of our fancy seat there, just using the cooler, but camp chairs, buckets, you name it, are good options. So we try to keep as many fish as we can. We love using fish, freezing it or making it immediately. So anytime we're out on the ice, that's kind of our goal. These are just a few happy fish pictures. Fortunately, winter weather is conducive to keeping fish cold and good for a while. But as soon as we get home, we get those cut up and either cooked or in the freezer. You can enjoy a nice adult beverage in the process. We do all sorts of stuff with our fish. That photo on the right is some trout in a brine. We like to smoke fish. They're pretty tasty. Also come up with some good breakfasts with fish tacos, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into more just, general info on ice fishing. And probably if you've never been ice fishing before, one of your biggest concerns is safety. So this is a number you'll see a lot of places, and it's something we live by, and that is you want the ice to be 4 inches before you go out walking on it. Obviously, the best way to check is to drill your own holes. If you were on a lake that you didn't have any information about, you'd walk a 15, 20 yards out from the bank, drill a hole, and then keep doing that and making sure that you were safe until you got to where you were comfortable fishing. Crampons are those little spikes that you can wrap around your shoes. Those are awesome. I highly recommend them for ice safety. A lot of people are happy to just walk out on the ice in their boots, but I'm really a lot more comfortable with something on the bottom of my feet. And one golden rule is that clear ice is always the safest. Here's just a little graphic to show you, what your minimum inches should be based on what you're willing to bring out on the ice. I don't think there are too many places in New Mexico where vehicles the size of cars or trucks are allowed out on the ice, but there's a lot of other places where that may not be regulated, and the ice is thick enough that it's actually safe to bring those things out. I've certainly never been comfortable with it, but back in Wisconsin and Minnesota, there are a lot of people that'll bring whole trailer houses out on the ice. And one thing to note is that these minimums are guidelines for clear ice only. I'll get into a little bit of the variation in the next slide. So I usually hate just reading slides, but these safety tips kind of need to be heard or read verbatim. And I imagine you don't all want to sit here and read through all these. I'll try and just run through them quick. New ice is stronger than old ice. 4 inches is ideal. Ice seldom freezes uniformly. It may be a foot thick in one location and only an inch or two a few feet away. So again, it's good to be checking as you're walking out and check the area around you once you settle on an area. Obviously, ice on rivers, streams, or flowing water is pretty dangerous. Snow actually has an insulating effect on ice. So if you get layers of snow and layers of ice and layers of snow and layers of ice, even if it's a lot thicker than just clear ice, that clear ice is probably stronger. I have seen that if you have layered ice like that, it's often smart to double those minimum standards for the kind of weight you should plan to bring out on the ice. Every time I've gone ice fishing, I've heard booming and cracking sounds while you're out there. That's not necessarily dangerous. It's pretty normal. Ice is going to move. So don't let, as long as you've done your due diligence with checking ice depth, don't let that scare you off. The next most important thing to ice safety and making sure that you don't fall in is cold weather safety. A lot of you know this if you've been involved in any kind of hunting or fishing. Layers are key. I wouldn't go ice fishing without gloves, hats, and a good pair of boots. Boots are what's usually touching the ice, so that's probably, a really important thing to make sure you have a good quality set of boots on. Bibs are pretty nice, especially when it's really cold or windy. You got to think about wind and sun protection. I often forget that sun can be a factor out there, but sunglasses and sunscreen are a good idea. You know, other items to think about, toe and hand warmers. If you know somebody with an ice shelter or want to spring for one, having one of those out there is very nice, especially if it's windy. We certainly had to strategize with getting our little guy out last year and trying to find a weekend where wind forecast wasn't too high, because it can turn a nice sunny day into misery pretty quick. So fortunately, another person in the department put together this handy list for basic equipment for ice fishing. I believe last year it was in the New Mexico Wildlife magazine, so that'd be a good resource for you. I'll run through these basics really quick. It's really not too much you need if you want to get started. The rods for ice fishing are small. They're, you know, a few feet long. The 24 to 36 will probably do you most places in New Mexico. Those bigger rods are more if you're trying to target northern pike and other pretty big species up north. You want to use ultralight reels, and really what we go for if we're buying new stuff is they sell combo rods and reels. That's a good way to go. You don't have to think about it. You need an auger. You got to be able to get through the ice. An ice scoop is actually really important to keeping, once you've drilled holes, keeping them clean. They'll slush up, and that'll help keep ice from forming on your line. You obviously need some bait and tackle. Probably the most popular baits to use are power bait, corn, and worms or wax worms. You can use some lures or some plastics too, along with that stuff. You want to have a seat, some sort of seat, a bucket, camp chair, pliers for hook removal, a big sled to help you haul everything out to your spot. And then I put stars next to rod holders. We've never used rod holders, but those would be pretty handy and inexpensive. And then an ice fishing shelter, again, that would help keep you out there when conditions started getting a little bit bad. If you were catching a lot of fish and started getting cold, it'd be kind of nice to have that. So they usually run, I'd say, in the couple hundred, you know, $200 to $400 range, brand new. But if you keep your eye on Craigslist and those sorts of places, folks are always getting rid of that stuff. So here's just a few pictures of some of the equipment. On the left, those are two different styles of augers. You can use that hand auger, less than $100. Those gas powered and sometimes electric powered augers are a lot more expensive. You can drill a lot faster and it's easier to drill a lot of holes. But if you're just starting out ice fishing, it's probably good to start with that manual auger. On the right, you just see the range of equipment you can use for rods. Those are just different size rods on the bottom. And then tip up is another thing you can use ice fishing, and there are certainly regulations about how many rods and tip ups you can have out. But tip ups are kind of cool because obviously that flag shoots up when something's on the line, but can just be left basically untouched. And you don't have to do too much with those. Okay, so here's some of the equipment I talked about. That's that ice scoop in the upper left that you need to keep your hole clear. We like to use those Swedish pimple lures and tip them with like a little wax worm. That photo on the right, upper right's an example of some of the jigs that we use, teardrop jigs. Corn is a really common bait. Surprisingly, it works well. And those wax worms will come in little bait pucks like that in the bottom center. You can order that on Amazon. And then, of course, power bait, lots of folks are familiar with. I might try to get to a video here. Let's see. This is just some basics about bait and lures to kind of reinforce. You don't really need that much, but here are some things you should be looking for buying before you go out.
Caitlin, it hasn't switched over to the video. It's showing the PowerPoint.
When you're heading out.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll just skip that for now.
You can always try.
If we have time at the end, I could try it.
Okay, cool.
Sometimes if you get out of your screen share and then go back, just minimize your PowerPoint. Sometimes that'll like kind of kick it in.
All right, how's it look?
There you go.
Okay.
Ice fish, you have a lot of choices for baits
Can you
and
hear it?
lures. The captain of Team USA is here to show you some of those options.
Hi, I'm Mike McNett with the USA Ice Team. When you're out ice fishing, you have two options. You can use live bait or you can use artificial bait while fishing. Okay, let's look at some of the options. Most of the styles we have here are horizontal presentations. We have teardrops are very popular. We've got some of the round jigs, and then you've got the banana jig, which is more of a vertical presentation. Once you select your jig, and then you decide you want to use live bait, it's always good to have a thermal container for your maggots or your wax worms, and keep them close to your body so they don't freeze. Let's go ahead and put one of these little guys on a jig. What I like to do is squeeze it really tight. There's a little scent sac in there. You just barely want to hook it on that scent sac.
Many anglers like to fill the hook up with live bait, especially when fish are biting good. This usually allows you to rebait less often, meaning more time in the water.
Your second option to live bait is plastics. One of the reasons I like plastics is they have such a wide range of colors and sizes. And on one day you may have a fish that likes pink, and one day you might want orange. One of the other things that's important is in your plastics are in a bag, one way they'll be down and one they'll be up. And you always want to make sure with the horizontal jig that it's up. So your finished product should be straight out like that. And that tail will just wiggle and entice the fish to bite it.
If you choose live bait, make sure it's fresh every time you go out. Maggots should be kept in the refrigerator, but waxworms should be kept next to a window. They'll last a lot longer. Or you might choose to use plastics.
One of the advantages of plastics are they never die. So as long as you keep them on the hook and the fish are biting, you're going to have fun. And just remember, whatever option you take, have fun while you're out there.
Check out our other ice fishing videos on takemefishing.org and check out usaiceteam.com for more information on the U.S. Ice Fishing Team.
Okay. So here are some extras as you get into ice fishing, and if you feel like.
Wow, what's going on, guys?
Hold on a sec.
Today we're at a little pond. Came across this Eskimo Channy there.
Sorry, that started playing ice fishing videos on me. Okay. Okay, you can splurge on some of these toys. The two things on the top are, one's a Vexilar, one's, a Garmin. They're both, I think, considered flashers, but they basically are another tool to use to help you. The thing about ice fishing is everything is small because the bites you have to be a lot more sensitive to the bites. But the cool thing about these gadgets is they give you a little bit of an advantage in helping detect when there are fish pretty close to your hook. So that thing on the right, there's kind of a red bar in the 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock positions, and that's basically the bottom of the floor of the lake and then the surface of the lake. And then on the left, you see that red area, that's actually showing a fish underneath that green line, which is your lure. You certainly have to read user manual, but once you figure it out, it's pretty intuitive and it's pretty fun to watch that and kind of anticipate when you're about to get a bite. You can also buy cameras and basically drill 2 holes and put that little camera down at the bottom and have fun watching fish come up to your lure. I had a friend back in Montana that had one of those, and it was really entertaining to see how many times fish actually came up that we never felt the bite. Yeah, this is if you just really want to go big. You know, these are some of the things you find in areas where ice fishing is a huge part of the culture, just luxury ice fishing shanties, basically. ATVs are kind of nice if you happen to have one of those. Those are good to use out on the ice. Again, you want to make sure that you've got the right depths of or ice thickness for it. And then once you're getting started, kind of went over this with my personal example, but you know, find a spot, drill some holes, maybe look for where you see other people congregated and go a little ways out from there. They might be your best indicator of a good place to find fish if you're starting from square one. And for us, you know, I mentioned we're usually targeting perch and trout. Perch are often more stationary. Trout are more likely to be swimming around. So you can probably find trout anywhere. Perch, you might have to try a few different spots before you find them, or just wait an hour and they might start biting. But usually what we'll do is drop our lure, our jig to the bottom, reel up maybe a foot or two, reel up a little, and just sit there and jig that bait. If you don't have any bites after a while, maybe bring that bait up a little higher, you know, test different depths until you find some success. If you're fishing with a tip up, you know, those are often just sitting there, so they're usually either sitting on the bottom or just off the bottom. I meant to say bobbers are certainly an option, but you'd want to go as small as possible. Like I said, you want to try to be as sensitive as you can to bites, and bobbers can interfere with that if they're too heavy. Something I've never done but have heard about is spear fishing. That is a method of ice fishing, and people will cut big rectangles in the ice, and you have to have it in an enclosed shelter. It has to be black so the fish can't see, but that would be pretty cool to try someday. I'm not sure what the regulations are in New Mexico on spear fishing, so I wouldn't recommend trying it anywhere until you search that. But usually you do that with larger predatory fish. And again, remember to always check what the limits are on the body of water you're on. You know, perch is pretty high, so that's nice to be. You can certainly catch enough for a couple meals in most places. In New Mexico, the most popular ice fishing spots are Fenton Lake, Cabresto Lake, Sugar Eat Canyon State Park, and Eagle Nest Lake. You know, the nice thing about these places too is that they'll tell you, they basically open up ice fishing, so you know that the ice is safe because they've gone and given people the go ahead to get out on the ice. There's a lot of states that won't do that, but that's pretty handy here. You can have some extra confidence when you go out there. This is just a map showing those few spots. There are a couple lakes, maybe 3 or 4 in New Mexico that are where ice fishing is not allowed, but then everywhere else it's kind of proceed at your own risk. And with that, I'll happily take any questions. I've got, you know, a couple minute video if people don't have any questions and we need to fill some more time. Just a goofy video, but I thought it'd be better to have conversations if people are interested in that.
So I did have one question pop up in the chat, and Megan answered it, but I don't know if everybody could see it or not. The question was, how many rods can you use in New Mexico when you're ice fishing?
First drive. I mean, I didn't.
So in New Mexico, you can use 2 rods. If you are going to use a second rod, you do need to purchase a second rod validation. And that can be purchased just through our online sales. So it'd be the same place that you would buy your fishing license or your hunting license. There's another option there for second rod validation. And when you print your fishing license, it'll show on their second rod. But those are, you can only have up to 2. More than that is not allowed.
And the second rod validation is only $4. So if you're gonna go, you might as well grab that second rod.
I also noticed in the chat that a few people were super interested, Caitlin, in your recipes. So maybe if you could, unless it's a secret family recipe, you could share that with us. We could post it when we post the video as well. It can go along with when we post it for the YouTube, so, and online. So that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I can, I'll share what we've got for, we copy somebody else's brining recipe, but we've got a couple taco and breakfast recipes I'd be happy to share.
And just to kind of mention, spearfishing is a legal mean of angling. There's some restrictions as far as, you know, types of spears and all that, but you can find that out on our big game rules and information booklet. But it is a legal means in all areas that are open to angling. You just have to follow all the same bag limits and any restrictions that other angling with the rod would have. So that is legal means here.
And the next question, Caitlin, is it mostly rainbow trout in New Mexico?
So there's where we ice fish at Eagle Nest, and I think in Fenton Lake, rainbow trout are most common. But I don't know that for sure. I don't know the answer. I know we've got a bunch of other trout in New Mexico. I just, you know, at those popular ice fishing lakes, I'm not sure what else people catch.
The other one I know of at Fenton is that sometimes the department stocks Rio Grande cutthroat trout in Fenton. So I know last year I saw some reports come across to people catching the Rio Grandes while they were ice fishing. But the most of the reports I see are for rainbow trout during ice fishing season. Cool. And the next question, Caitlin, what are some safety tips if ice breaks?
So if that's something that you are concerned about, there's actually a few pieces of gear that you can bring out on the ice. There are ice picks, which are basically like there's 2 handles and 2 little picks on them, and it forms a necklace you latch around your neck. If you have that on you and were to fall through, all you'd have to do is grab that off your neck and basically stab into the ice on the side that you fell into. You can bring flotation devices. That's another option. I'd highly recommend YouTubing ice fishing safety. You'd be amazed how many different videos there are. We just kind of scratched the surface, but there are all sorts of products, you know, to have yourself prepared.
That's great. And then our next question is from Vanessa, and it's kind of a couple part, and it's a little bit off topic, but if anybody knows anything about it, or Caitlin or anybody jump in. Her first question is, in the future, past COVID, will you guys be doing guided women's fishing tours? And Jessica, if you want to jump in and talk about what DOES has done with fishing. I can't say for sure what the future is going to look like because it seems pretty it seems like it varies quite a bit right now, but at least we can talk about what we've done and what we might be able to do in the future.
I think that sounds like a great idea for a Joe's ladies outing. You know, staying in Eagle Nest would be fun, and getting out on the ice. Probably the toughest challenge after COVID, because during COVID I don't think we'll be able to pull something like that off. But after COVID, I think the toughest challenge would be to plan it and know that we're going to have good weather / and or ice. Because if we don't have good ice, then we got to go to plan B, which who knows what that might be. Maybe it's skiing. I don't know. And Colleen might be able to give a thumbs up or thumbs down on that if she's up for that adventure. I'm guessing she's totally up for it. And then there was a kind of a question that came in right after that somebody was wanting to maybe just plan a informal Eagle Nest ice fishing trip. And so maybe some of you could get together and do that. You know, our rules with the department are still very restrictive. The governor's orders are that, you know, no crowd sizes larger than 5, and we're doing everything virtually. So a virtual ice fishing trip sounds fun to me, because then I could sit in my house and be nice and warm. But it's definitely something that sounds exciting. And Colleen says yes, she's up for it. May close from the new restrictions released from the governor today. I don't know. Are you talking about state parks, maybe, Colleen? Because she didn't mention anything about state parks from in today's press conference. So far, the state parks, and I think majority of the lakes are now open to fishing. So that could be helpful if some of you want to get together. Robin is looking for somebody who wants to go.
Cheryl just mentioned that there's no changes to state park regulations, so.
Yeah, there wasn't anything announced today, so I'm thinking, yep, it was museums and historical sites. So state parks were still good to go. Oh, she works for parks. Look at that. We have a parks expert with us. Thank you, Cheryl.
Our next question, does anybody have any advice for snagging? It's something that I've watched a few YouTube videos on, but I don't know much about it. So does anybody else know anything about snagging?
I've just seen it when I used to help out at the kokanee spawn many moons ago. It looks like a lot of fun up on Heron Lake. I've never done it before, but kokanee are really yummy, so I can highly recommend getting out there and doing it. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe YouTubing it until we can get somebody who could be on here that has maybe done it and can shed some light on that. But
so I don't know if Tish is still on. Her and I talked about snagging a while back. She went, she did not have an enjoyable time. She said it was very dangerous. You are throwing a treble hook. People are very aggressive and competitive about it. So if you were going to go, I recommend trying maybe to, especially if you're new to it, try going during the week when there might not be as many people out there. But yeah, Jen's right, kokanee is an awesome fish to eat, but just it sounds like it's probably not a great activity to have young kids at either, if they're, you know, not paying attention to where these big old treble hooks that are flying. Melissa says she has friends that go early in the morning and be prepared to be shoulder to shoulder. Yeah.
Caitlin, the next question I had for you on ice fishing, is there a perfect time to go ice fishing?
I don't think that there is. I really don't. I mean, I think a lot of us have a bias that maybe right at the beginning where they haven't been fished in a little while, you know, might be best, but you can have luck any weekend, really.
And I know you have participated in their, well, I think you have participated in the ice fishing tournament at Eagle Nest, which that always seems to be a huge success, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I've been up there a couple times during the tournament. I've actually never paid the entrance fee and signed up for the competition itself, but the energy there is really a blast. You know, everybody's having fun. And there's prizes too. It kind of brings another, fun competitive component to it. So yeah, that's a time if you're just going to go one time and, we're interested in seeing how that works, that'd be a fun weekend to try out Eagle Nest.
Awesome. Well, is there any other questions for Caitlin on ice fishing or a tangent on salmon snagging?
You're welcome to share my work email, if anybody has follow-up stuff they want to reach out to me about.
Awesome. I will drop that into the chat. And Caitlin, I really appreciate your time and that you joined us. And it's great to have a different face out here with us. When last month when they were like, let's talk about ice fishing, we were all like, take hot chocolate. So it's great to have somebody.
That's a good tip I didn't hit on, but yeah, bring a warm beverage for sure. No, I've loved being here and hope to join in down the road.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Caitlin might be able to share some stories about bighorn sheep if anybody's interested in learning more about them. I know we've got quite the diverse population in New Mexico of sheep, so that could be a fun topic if that piques your interest. Throw it in the chat.
Cool. Well, Caitlin, you're welcome to stay and join us. And I know you know about our next topic as well. So feel free if you want to stay and keep talking, you're more than welcome to. Or I know you have a little one that may need fed as well. So we understand either way. But Jennifer, do you want to jump into field dressing?
Yes. Let me get fingers crossed that my screen share is going to work for y'all. So say some good juju here for me. So that is not what I was wanting to share.
It looks right here.
No, it was posting up the wrong one.
Okay.
So let me see if it wants to play with the correct slideshow. Okay, I hope everybody can see Field Dressing 101.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so this was one of the suggested topics that was suggested last social hour. So I'll go a little faster just so we don't run over time. So one of the things that we always want to think about, obviously when you're out hunting and before you even get to that field dressing aspect, is staying safe after the shot. So it's super safe to stay safe and focused following that shot. And what you're going to want to do is just make sure that you stay calm, make sure you've checked your safety on your firearm, unload if you've noticed that the animal is down and you no longer need to have a follow-up shot. Sorry, my slides were backwards. So
Jen, we're just seeing we're not seeing it in the slideshow presentation. So if you're clicking, we're not seeing anything change.
Really?
There was so much thrill there in your voice.
Oh, so okay. Let me do a do-over then, apparently. Try again. Bear with me, ladies. I've got some technical difficulties with Zoom. Can you see it now?
No.
No.
No. I don't know what's happening here.
I think you have a Zoom ghost at your house.
I'm pretty sure I do, because it is so random when it wants to work and so random when it doesn't want to work. No, it's still not working.
Can you just run through it on that slide and just click down from one to the next?
Yep, I will just have to do that because I apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. Okay, so again, let me go to this one real quick. So the next thing that you're going to need to do is, if your animal didn't go down just like it does on TV, your next kind of second hunt has begun, and so now you're going to need to trail your animal. And of course, that's a whole nother topic, so I won't really get into that this evening, but if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, let us know in the chat, and we'd be happy to put together another discussion item for you guys on how to track and blood trail an animal. So once you're approaching your animal, it's always really, really important to safely go up to the animal from behind and above. And what you're going to do is look for the eyes. Are they real glassy? Are they still blinking? Obviously, if you have any movement in the eyes, then the animal's not quite expired yet. Look for any twitching of the ears or the tail, and of course the rising and the falling of the chest cavity. If you don't see any of those things, unload your firearm, you're completely done, and you're going to tag your animal. Then after the shot, part 2 is, okay, we already covered that. Some of the basic things that you're going to need is obviously knives. And I'm sorry that my screen share is not working properly, but some of the basic things that you need, and you don't need a lot, especially on your knives. Some people think, oh, I've got to have this big, big knife. Well, you don't want to have a big knife in a small cavity like an animal or antelope or a deer. So something that's really nice, that fits in your hand, that you can get in there into the body cavity and not have to worry about a lot of blade, okay? Because there are some aspects where you might not be able to fully see what your hands are doing with that sharp blade. So nothing too big. I always like to recommend, here's just a couple of examples of some knives. This one is really nice because it has a gut hook on the end of it, which is super handy. Here's another example of a gut hook that I like to use, and has a replaceable razor blade right here, which is really nice. Always like to have a knife sharpener, especially if you're going to be tackling larger animals like elk or especially oryx. They're extremely thick hide on oryx, and they'll dull a blade super quickly. So always nice to have a little handheld knife sharpener just to get that edge back off on your knife. A small saw, and I like this one because it has this little guard right here. A couple other things that are nice to have are rope and a little carabiner here. Sometimes if it's a small enough animal, you can get it up off the ground, or you can tie a leg if you don't have a lot of help, especially on a bigger game animal. And what's really nice is that no product endorsements here whatsoever, but I really like the Havalons. They're replacement blades, and so if it gets dull, and if you're like me, you try to sharpen a knife, and the more I try to sharpen it, I'm making it duller. So it is definitely a skill that I do not have fine-tuned at all. So the Havalons are really nice, especially when you get to skinning. And you're wanting to cape an animal out, or you're getting along the face or some really delicate areas, those Havalons are really, really nice to have, and you're not getting super frustrated working against yourself with a dull knife. So game bags and sheets. The reason why I put sheets on there is game bags can be very pricey. If you're just getting into hunting, of course you're getting knives and rifles and ammo and lots of other things. Sheets work really well. Don't obviously use your nice good ones, but you can pick up some really cheap ones at the dollar store or at Goodwill. And the pillowcases, what you're wanting is airflow for the meat and the carcass, and keeping that meat clean, keeping the dirt off of it, and then any bugs or anything else like that. But you want that air exchange to cool your meat. And so sheets enable you to do that. Tarps don't. If you wrap your meat or a carcass in a tarp, it's just holding all that heat in. And water. When you're field dressing, you can get it's a lot of effort. You can exert yourself, make sure you're drinking enough water, and if you have some bottled water and you can, any leftover, you can kind of rinse inside the cavity, drain it really good if it's a small enough animal, and it'll definitely help take care of your meat a little bit more. So I am going to, I'm hoping this works, try to show you the field dressing video that I put together, actually on a recent antelope hunt. So I'm hoping it will screen share for you all.
I can see it.
You can. Oh, fantastic.
But have you hit play?
I have not. So I just want to make sure everybody can see it first. Okay, here we go. It's about 9 minutes.
The most important thing to have, obviously, is sharp knives. And some of the ones that I recommend, obviously, are something that's not, I mean, you don't need a big Bowie knife to do this. You're in a tiny space.
Real quick, I do want to disclose that if anybody is a little squeamish about stuff, there might be a little bit of, we are going to be looking at an internal cavity of an animal, so I just kind of want to disclose that just to anybody.
So a nice sharp knife. And then this one's pretty cool because it's got the gut hook. So when we get to that point, it has a guard here so you don't puncture the paunch.
Right. Yep.
So that's super important. But there's lots of different ways to field dress, obviously. Yeah. You know, it's just basically what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I'll just show you kind of the way that I was kind of taught, and if you want, you can go and hold. I'll get it started, and then we'll get you into here. But I always like to start at the back end and cut around all the private parts back here, and that way when you get up to the point when you pull it out, it all comes out nice and easy. Now, proof of sex for you is going to be, since it's a doe, it's going to be her head, and since you're going to take her home for a skull mount, we don't have to worry about keeping these parts. Alrighty. Okay? And so then you'll start here, and we're going to pretty much go all the way up.
So basically what I'm doing here is I'm cutting through the tissue right between the two pelvic bones, put a little pressure, and it'll open it wide.
So you basically want to ream out the back end area and cut right through the pelvic bone here. And then we're going to zipper all the way up. So on this part, because remember all the guts are right there, you just barely want to cut through this. Just enough, see where we're starting to see the lining of the stomach? Yeah. And so what's really cool is you'll get this and see how it's zipping it? Yeah. I'll let you do that. Right there. There you go. Alrighty. There you go. So I made a little tiny incision there. And see, Adriana, so now I've got the paunch right here, and see how I'm pushing my hands down like this? Yeah. I'm gonna push that down and come up like that. So I'm pushing that, there's the diaphragm. So if you want, you can try that.
Remember what, that's the way they showed you.
Yeah, you can come right here to whatever's easiest for you.
I'll move out of the way so that you can.
Okay. There we go. So right in there. Right there. And right to the sternum there. There. And you won't be able to go any further there. We'll get that with the saw. Cool. So we're going to set that one aside. And then go ahead and take this, and we're going to cut through all that muscle tissue. So the sternum's right there. So go ahead and cut through that a little bit. There you go. It's okay. So what that was the air, so the diaphragm's back here. Yeah. and that's separating the heart and lungs from the rest of the cavity here.
Okay.
And so that was all the air coming out
Okay.
of that upper cavity. So go ahead and just keep going through that muscle, because then we're going to saw through that, and you're going to use quite a bit of pressure, and you're just going to go right along the top here. Keep going all the way through that fat, because that'll bind up the saw there. And if you're all the way to the bone, let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. And I always like to use one of these saws with a guard, because in that way you won't damage the paunch either.
Yeah.
So what you'll do is you're going to do short strokes like that. All right. And you're going to cut all the way through the sternum. So the next part now is, especially if you're doing this by yourself,
Yeah.
see the diaphragm? You're going to need to cut that away. And so you'll take your knife and you go down along the inside of that diaphragm.
Yeah.
You're cutting that away, because then here in a minute we should be able to pull everything out. But then just be mindful of the paunch there. But just cut. See, I'm pushing it away.
Yeah.
With my one hand, and then I'm cutting that diaphragm away with my other hand. And then don't get too far deep in there, because your tenderloins are there. So I'll let you do the other side.
Alrighty.
And of course, the biggest thing with meat spoilage is heat. So we want to get this carcass cooled as fast as we can. So just pull, oops. So that's your lungs. Little biology lesson here. You did your job, Adriana, by practicing at the range, because there is no heart left now. And then of course we got some of this still attached in there, but technically when all of that, it can pull right on out. And but because you did your job so well at the range, and a perfect one-shot kill to the heart, I didn't have much to grab onto to pull it all out. But see how it all just pulls right on out, and I didn't ream it out enough back here. Where's the saw? And then of course here, and you just cut through the pelvic bone. There's a really cool trick that I've seen, and I can't ever seem to duplicate it, but there is a couple, so when the pelvic bone meets back here, meets like a little triangle, and if you can find that, then you just cut through those. You can actually do it with a knife. I've seen it done on elk, and then you don't have to cut through. Man. There we go.
Put your legs still hold it.
But because I reamed all that out too, then a lot of this should just pull right out. She's in really good condition. She's got a lot of body fat. A lot of body fat. This isn't the best. This isn't the best, but there we go. And then hold her up, and we're gonna drain her. tenderloins are back there. So we rinse the carcass out to get it nice and cool. Put a little bit of water in there. You just want to make sure that a lot of that pooled up blood and bloodshot gets out. Carcass is nice and cool, so get back to the skinning shed and get that taken care of.
Okay, so hopefully everybody was able to see and hear that okay. I won't go through the rest of the slideshow essentially. So just because for the sake of time, because I see we're a little out of time, but some of the things that hopefully that helps you guys give you a basic idea of how to field dress an animal. Antelope are super easy for a 1 or 2 person job. You can lift them up. Obviously, if you're going to do something on a bigger animal like elk, it's going to take a little bit more heft, but you don't need big knives for big animals. You can use the same exact small knives as I've used. And again, you're still going to need to get in that body cavity, and you don't want just a huge blade in there with your hands. So a couple of the other things to be thinking about, as I mentioned, is that heat. That is #1 cause for meat spoilage. So as fast as you can, and of course, I saw a few comments in the chat of what's that magic time, and as fast as you can, especially in hot weather. That day it was already pushing mid-70s in the morning, and the young lady that I was fortunate enough to take out, she had had her goat on the ground just a few minutes after 7, but we were already starting to get a little warm by the time we got done with all of that. So, but as soon as you can, and at a bare minimum, get all the internal organs and stuff out of there, and get that body cavity open. And we took a little bit of bottled water and rinsed all that out. That helps cool that out as well. You don't want to leave that water in there. As you saw, we drained it, but getting that body cavity open and so air can flow in there is cool, to get it to cool. We were taking it back to a rack to skin. And again, that hide is keeping all of that heat in as well. It's just like us putting on clothes and a jacket. It's insulation, so get that hide off as quickly as you can as well if you are in warmer environments. I think some of you guys were talking about elk hunting. Well, if you have a cooler season or late season hunt, and you don't really have to worry about that heat as much. So that's always really, really nice. But if you're hunting antelope, or you have a warm season deer hunt, or even an oryx hunt, you definitely want to get that hide off as fast as you can. I'll tell you what you're going to want to do is when you're transporting that meat back to wherever, that's when you can use your game bags. They do make game bags so you can put the entire animal in if they're small, but if it's a big animal, you'll just quarter that animal out and put it in game bags. So basically, the more you can break down that animal as fast as you can into smaller pieces, obviously, then that will help that meat cool it faster instead of one big carcass. But again, skills and where you're at and just your situation when you have that animal on the ground is going to dictate to you what you can and can't do. So a couple other things that I think is super that you're going to need or that can be helpful is you're going to need proof of sex on the animal that you've harvested. I did talk a little bit about that in the video. She had harvested a doe, but she was going to take the head back for a European mount, so that was her proof of sex that she harvested a doe. But just follow the rules and regulations information booklet on page 31, and it will give you proof of sex in the big game ribs. Always have an ice chest and ice. And what we did also when we were taking that doe back to the skinning rack is we actually stuck a couple bags of ice in that carcass just to help it to continue to cool on our way back. So that helps. Something that's helpful is a gambrel. And if you don't really know what that looks like, it's just a hook that you put the hocks on, and if my screen share was working better, I would show you, but you can Google it. That's something that you're not going to probably carry with you, but if you can take your animal back to camp or something, that's helpful. What I like to do, helpful hint, is so we all have these leftover laundry detergent canisters, and it's like you want to use that last little bit of soap, but you just don't know what to do with it. I use it on my hunting trips. So if you have a little bit of that residual hunting soap or laundry soap in your canister, I fill it up with water and I'll shake it up really good, and I'll take that with me on my hunting trips. And it is really great, especially the ones with a little push nozzle on it. I push it and I'll wash my knives, I'll wash my hands, and it gets all of that junk off of your hands. So don't throw those away, reuse them, and just fill them up with water, and they're awesome to have on. Just leave it in the back of your truck, leave it at camp or whatever, and it's really, really awesome to use to clean up after a field dressing process. And don't forget to talk to your taxidermist and ask them how they would like your animal caped out. So if you're going to want to mount that animal, how far do you need to cut on that animal so they have enough hide to work with on your trophy that you might want to mount? Or if it's a rug, how do they need to, or you want it tanned, just the hide. So talk to your taxidermist, because they will let you know exactly how you need to take care of that hide or the head, so your mount will turn out really, really nice. So don't cut too much, or leave too much is what I'm trying to say. Don't give them plenty of animal to work with on your trophy or whatever it is you're wanting to do. So that's all I have for field dressing. I've seen quite a bit of activity on the chat. So is there anything that I can clarify or?
Hey, Jen, I would just want to mention to take your time, especially, the first few times. Don't feel like you have to hurry through it. Yeah, you want to cool down the animal, but that doesn't mean, try to rush through it. Take your time with those cuts. The last thing you want to do is cut yourself while doing that. So just take your time and be mindful of where your hand is, where your body position is. It's real easy to just kind of get zoned into it and forget that your leg is right there next to the animal's leg, or your hand that doesn't have a knife is too close to where you're trying to cut up to. So just take your time and go slow.
Yep, great point. Especially if you're in the wilderness somewhere, the last thing you need to worry about is stitching you up.
And I add to that, it took not too long for Jen to go through that pronghorn, but I was talking to our deputy director earlier today, and he said it took him about 2 hours to get his elk field dressed and quartered. So, when you plan for those bigger animals, it's okay for it to take several hours. Just take some snacks and be ready for that. But it isn't something on an elk or, even deer can take quite a while. So if you get in there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is taking me way longer. Remember, first of all, Jennifer has field dressed a lot of animals and has a lot of practice, but don't be intimidated that it could take a while.
The other thing I wanted to throw in there is not only do you need to be cautious of your own hands, but Jennifer mentioned the paunch several times. There's also the bladder in there. You don't want to puncture any of that. Doing that can make a mess real quick, can lead to spoil or turn your meat unusable. So be very careful. Try to keep the gut sac kind of all together. And so other things to just, take your time on if you're not sure.
I also noticed that your kit, you can buy those. You can buy a field dressing kit that's got several different types of blades in it. But if you notice in the video, a lot of them were fixed blade. So if you do have any knives that are not fixed blade, meaning that you have to open it, make sure that mechanism stays locked really good. Because if it's an older knife or it's a knife that you use a lot and that mechanism is a little shaky, the last thing you want is to be using it and it gives out and it folds when you're field dressing. So you'll notice a lot of those kits have a fixed blade that they use.
Yep, those are great points. And I kind of got out of step when I was actually doing that video with Adriana is one of the things that I normally do, and I just did it backwards this time, is after I've she opened up that body cavity and everything, and before we pulled everything out, normally what I do is I go ahead and I do cut through that pelvic bone. That way, when I do pull it all out, it does come all out. So just helpful hint there to not duplicate that process. I mean, on a small animal, it works really well, but I ideally have that pelvic bone split, and then you can pull everything out in one. action, I should say. So.
Hey, I had something to add. You know, one thing I found almost be a necessity is parachute cord, especially if you find yourself in a precarious situation on the side of a hill, or you're somewhere where you are field dressing by yourself. It gives you a way as you're field dressing to kind of tie off some limbs and help have that back pressure as you're working through the animal. But also if you're quartering, you can use that to hang those quarters in a tree as you're processing through the animal.
Yeah, that's real good because especially with like an elk, you probably won't be able to move it. So if you end up shooting it on the side of the hill, you're stuck with where it is. So
Yeah,
that's good advice.
Tristanna, do you want to throw up our poll?
Yeah, I'll
So
throw
we
it up
can-
really quick. And I just wanted to mention there's several good comments in the chat as well, so make sure and check those out. But let me find where my mouse is. So we typically throw up some ideas for our next session, which is going to be November 17th is what we have scheduled. So take a minute, you can select several. For those of you that have joined us know that we do our best to stay to an hour, but we never do because there's so much great information and good conversation, which we find to be really important. So please, we'll pick a couple this time, and then we will continue to do these monthly as long as there's people interested. So, we got a wide variety.
Just thought we might throw this up before people had to log off early, but you know, if there's any other questions that we can answer, please throw those up there, especially if you've got a hunt next weekend and you've got a question about field dressing or can't go ice fishing next weekend, but it's getting close.
I'm hoping the weather cools down so we can get ice fishing. It was 81, I think, here at my house today, which is ridiculous.
Okay, well, the responses are slowing down. I'll go ahead and leave the poll up for another minute. But while we are finishing up, for anybody else that wants to take a vote or throw in a conversation or an extra topic into the chat, Caitlin, thank you again for joining us. And we'll add Caitlin's information and send it out to everybody. So if you have questions to follow up with her, you're more than welcome to. As well as I think we have a slide with contact information for Jessica, Jennifer, Megan, and I. But here, let me go ahead and post the results really quick. So it kind of looks like holiday wild game recipes is definitely a popular one that we can talk about in November. And then maybe, Caitlin, we'd love to have you come back and talk about bighorn sheep. So we'll get with you and see when you are available with the dates we are looking at in November or December. And we'll hit on, I'm wondering if we can't combine blood trailing with a little bit of butchering maybe, and throwing that in there because I've seen that come up in the chat a couple of times. So I'm going to screen capture those results so we can get our next one. Oh, here. I'll share it so everybody can see it. There we go. Sorry. But Jennifer, do you want to throw up that slide if you can? If not, I'll put it in an email with the video to send to everybody so they can contact us if they have any questions. Need anything?
Let me get that up there.
Thank you guys all for joining us. We hope you have a great night, and we will see you in November, so just before Thanksgiving.
Can everybody see our contact information?
I can.
Yeah. Mickey wants to have a potluck when COVID is over because the last governor's press conference, she said no potlucks.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully everybody can see our contact information. Oops, and Casey was our last one, but we'll make sure that Caitlin's got her contact information when we post it on our website.
Oh, there's Caitlin's email. She put it in the chat.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and stop the recording, and thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.